Hello, everybody. On our platform, Ballet Through Lines, today's guest is a Colombian-Belgian choreographer, Annnabelle Lopez Ochoa. She studied at the Royal Ballet School of Antwerp and danced for 12 years with different European dance companies. She started to focus on choreography in 2003, and since then created works for more than 17 companies around the world. She's not only award-winning and sought-after dance choreographer, but she also creates works for theater, opera, and music theater. During the pandemic, she started creating dance films. She directed and edited 23 short dance films. I warmly greet you, Annnabelle, on our platform, and I leave the floor to Tatiana, who is going to conduct the talk.
Thank you very much, Natasha. Hello, Tatiana.
Hello, Annnabelle. Where did we find you? Where are you now?
I'm home in Amsterdam. I'm not often home because I'm a globetrotter. I travel a lot for my work outside of Amsterdam, mostly in the United States. And this year I'll be going to Hong Kong and Australia and Cuba and Canada. So all over the world, and just a tiny little project with the Dutch National Ballet Junior Company this year.
That's great. A lot of plans ahead, but also you have a very diverse and I should say such a rich and beautiful career. Tell us a little bit about your background, maybe in connection also with your dance career, and I would like also to hear a little bit about the transition to being a choreographer and film director and educator.
Okay. Well, I started when I was 18 years old with a tiny company in the south of Germany. It was Tanztheater, dance theater. At the time, I had too much energy. I wanted to move and be less of an actor and more of a dancer. So I moved after 1 year to Heidelberg Staatstheater. That was still dance theater, but there was a little bit more classical technique involved. Same thing, too much energy. So I saw a company touring in Frankfurt, and they were called JazzX. And jazz and hip hop were also a big love of mine. When I graduated as a ballet dancer, I always would beg my mother to send me to hip hop courses over the summer. Very expensive courses, but I've learned a lot. And so when I saw that company, I thought I belong there. So I moved to the Netherlands. And I stayed with them for 3.5 years. Unfortunately, they folded. And after 3.5 years, I joined the Scapino Ballet, which is a contemporary company in Rotterdam. And that's where the director gave me my first opportunities to make work for the company, because every year there was a yearly choreographic workshop, and I would always enroll, and I was always ready with my piece way in advance. And he noticed that. He noticed my passion, my drive, my discipline. And classical dancer at the Royal Ballet School of Antwerp. I did hip hop over the summer. I did flamenco, which I loved a lot. But then I went into contemporary. I think that was the base why I choreograph in so many genres. Because for me, being, a mix between a Belgian mother and a Colombian father, I am all of this. And I don't want to choose, and I don't want to put myself into a box that I can only do one thing. I adapt to the style of the company that is in front of me. And with narratives, I choose which character will be classical and which character will be contemporary, depending on the needs of the storytelling. So that's why I don't have a very particular style. And I am everywhere, but nobody really knows what I'm doing. That's how I feel it is. And somebody ever said in art, if you want to be famous, you have to have a very definite and specific style. And I am not. I don't have a specific style. to fail, to succeed, to try again, and yeah, to keep searching until the end of your career. How do I tell stories? And I always say to young choreographers, the day that I think that I know how to choreograph is probably the day that I will stop. So each time I make a choreography, I try something new. I try something that I don't know how to do. And sometimes it's a huge success, and sometimes like, let's not ever do that again. And that's what's so attractive to me, to the art form of creation, is the unknown. I love not to know. And I love that after 5 weeks, suddenly there is a piece, and it feels always like I didn't make it, but it was made by a higher entity. And I was just there in the studio with artists in front of me, trying to be hypersensitive and hearing the whispers of the muses and what they're telling me what to do. So that's in a nutshell who I am.
That's a lot, and I wouldn't. Well, we should think maybe what the word famous really means. But I think, but I think and believe that the influence is the most important. The most important sensibility and the most important input. You know, so somehow you always by investigation or by creation, you create a certain way of influencing something. So during the lockdowns, which we will not mention the bad word of the disease, which affected dance world especially. But somehow we are trying to stand back on our feet. We expected this world of ours, the workplace that we have, or the artistic sphere, will become more mindful about us, about our minds and bodies, and not make so much advantage of choreographer. And being especially the inspiration came from narrative. So how to talk about the world today. You decided you can find how to manage that in making films, which is completely another media.
Yes.
We had a talk during the COVID with someone from United States who also created films at that time, but maybe we still see you are continuing to doing this. So what's the main reason of being so connected with this media?
I'm actually not so, I didn't make that much after the pandemic. Why did I start? It's, I was looking at the window we had was our phones. And so I was seeing a lot of people on Instagram posting, a lot of dancers posting the way they were warming up. And it was funny. They were always in their kitchen. For some reason, there's more space in your kitchen. I don't know. And I thought, well, this is not art. A warm-up is really to prepare your instrument to do art. And what is art is, in the art form of dance, is there is a choreographer that conveys an idea, and your body will regurgitate or translate it into movement. And I think that is art, not taking class or showing off how high your battement goes and you don't kick anything in your house. So by doing so, by thinking like that, I was approached by 2 dancers in Oslo, friends of mine, who were retiring, and they said, well, we won't have the retirement performance. So we would like for you to create something for us. And I thought, let's do it. And they had 3 children. So we almost thought, let's bring the children in, but that was a little too much to ask. And so we would meet at 9 o'clock at night when the children were asleep, and then we would do something on their couch. And then I asked them, do you know someone who has a camera or who is interested in recording this from different angles? And then I asked that person to, I wrote down where the angles were, and then I got all the material and I started editing. And that's the editing. So it felt very much like I kept choreographing. And, by making these 23 movies, very short, 3 to 5 minutes, I kept practicing how to tell stories. And obviously with the camera, the most interesting is if you put the camera in an angle that an audience will never expect. So that's really taught me to turn the room around and to go really close by or really far away. So yeah, for me, I wanted to stay in contact with dancers and create art. And thanks to Zoom and the very bad connections of Zoom sometimes, and thanks to iPhones, thank you all the new iPhones that came out, I could, continue my work. And I did one project where I choreographed a ballet on Tulsa Ballet, and that was a ballet for the stage. And that really opened to me and a lot of choreographers that travel a lot, that you don't always need to be there to work. You can see a run through, and then you can, they send it to you, and then you can give your corrections through Zoom to the dancers. So I still use that as a device, not so much to create, because it's really, I think we missed the proximity of the body. Although that being said, with the pandemic, like you notice, there's a lot of mental health issue. There's been a lot of talk about the Me Too movement, Black Lives Matter. And so we emerged into a new world where we have to keep our distance and a safe distance to dancers. So we're not allowed to touch dancers without asking them. Before, you just took an arm, you took a head, you were lifted. I was also younger, so I would always be lifted. Now I don't let myself lift anymore because I'm afraid to be injured. But I do notice now that I always ask a dancer if I'm allowed to try a movement with them, which before the pandemic was out of the question. So I don't know if that distance and the fact that we had so much time to reflect on what was happening with our art form, and like you said, our dance industry, the nasty word, and just like it, so I think it became more smooth. We have to be careful that we don't put boundaries in everything, because I still believe that the work of creativity, of creation, is to play, and in a playful way where there is no rules, we create magic. And when you see children playing around, they don't ask always, oh, can I try? Can I do this? So it's finding this balance where there's a playful environment, but at the same time that people feel safe, and we're there to create magic and not to make feel each other uncomfortable. So I thought those were good things. We just need to balance it out, that we don't become too the camp of the dancers and the camp of the choreographers. So yeah, this was why I did movies. And, I always say choreography is a craft. You have to practice a lot. And by making movies, I practiced the art form of telling stories, not really the art form of dance, because dance is much more mechanical and physical. And the storytelling is much more, I guess, what happens, the unsaid between people. That's where a story is being told.
Yeah, but somehow in a way of the process of creation, things need to be said. So we are talking about something unsaid, but still we have to say it. How can we make that?
Yeah, I think, but the most interesting for me in a scene, if we're talking about theater and narrative, is what is being said is the action. But what is the most tension is the subtext. What is not being said and done is probably the tension there is. So I always try in a scene to have an underlayer. You can, walk away from someone and actually you want them to take them in your arms. That is an interesting scene. Then I walk away just to go out. So the unsaid, the tension between us, that's the body language between human beings in life. There's a lot said when nothing is being said. And that makes an interesting scene. And that makes that it's exciting for an audience to watch, because otherwise you're like spoon feeding them of what the scene is about. It's nice when there's a bit of vibration, a tension, like what's going to happen next.
So when you create, of course, you have this space of yours, team of people around you, trustful people, long-term collaborators. And you appear at the most interesting or most vivid places in the world where the performing arts is present all the time, with lots of performances, festivals, and touring groups. So you might have a lot of communication with other people, with other creators as well. How often or which way you connect with not being influenced, but thinking or seeing or following the work of other artists, and how this makes you think? Because before you were telling about another layer, and we know that often great works have a lot of layers. We usually address one, the most important, because we have to concentrate on our work on that. But sometimes when I'm in the audience, I can see even more than the creator, him or herself, have seen in one piece. So when you are in the audience, how does that affect your perception of the work? How does it affect your mind, your body, your presence?
Yeah. I think, when people ask about what is my inspiration, I don't go to see other choreographers' dance work to be inspired, because it's already done. I like to see paintings, I like to see movies, I like to read books, biographies, talk with people, philosophize about the world, observe the world, because that's my source of inspiration. To go see dance performances is entertainment. And I have to sometimes take out my choreographer's cap of, oh, I would have done it differently. I like to not read the neither review, neither the program notes. I want this work to just do its effect on me. And if they surprise me, that's when I'm the most taken. Because going to a theater is, we do it since we're children. We like to be surprised. We don't want to know what's next. And so it's nice. I like the works that I don't expect, and they're not trendy, because I see a lot of works that are trendy. So everybody's doing this, and everybody's wearing the same kind of costumes, and everybody's doing the same lighting. When that happens, then I sit back and I'm like, yes, you're trying to be accepted, you're trying to be loved, you're trying to be part of the trend. I prefer maybe a not so famous choreographer, somebody that has a crazy idea that is completely out of the trend, and they try something, because I find that much more vulnerable to really show what you want to talk about and really show how you want to talk about. And that for me has more kudos, more bravo, and inspires me to not be afraid of judgment and of, you know, just being an artist, then try to fit in the trend. So yeah, usually it's people that are outside of the trend. Those ones inspire me. Not the piece itself, just the fact that as artists, they were courageous to be different. And that's what I always say to my, you know, when I have young choreographers that I mentor. I know that we get as dancers a lot of DNAs of every choreographer. Come out. And then the next step is, don't be afraid of judgment. People are going to judge you anyway. So just be you. And the more you are going to be honest, the more the response will be warm and embracing you. So that's for me, inspiration is really around me, and is people that are courageous and fearless. Those people inspire me.
That's great. I can count our small community, Natasha and Tomasz. We inspired you to talk to us because you are really, you know, you somehow surprise us with being so responsive and to react to our invitation at such a short notice. And I'm grateful to have this talk with you now, telling you what this means to us. And it's so yes, but the narratives, that's always what is it, the inspiration for you? What is the inspiration about? But I'm particularly interested maybe in The Little Prince, because maybe we are working on this piece as well now, but from completely another angle, because we are in the process for almost a year, and this is just a pure coincidence. So what is about the Little Prince story, maybe among all the other contemporary legends or myths?
Yeah. I think for me, storytelling, when I tackle a storytelling with my team, I always try to research the background. Who wrote it? When was it written? Is there, or, you know, a character? I did a lot of, you know, historical women. So what are their drives? What are their fear? What happened in their youth that they react a certain way? In which culture are they? Which country is it setting up? In The Little Prince, it's, you know, what are the metaphors? There's a lot of metaphors. I know The Little Prince since I'm 10 years old because of the beautiful little drawings. And I always thought, oh yeah, that's a little prince that's in, you know, in the desert. As a child, you don't ask yourself that it, you know, it's impossible. There's no little prince in the desert. And then, you know, every time I read Little Prince, I see different things. That's why it's so magical. And then when I did it a couple of years ago in 2019, with my team, we really dived deep into, and then we started understanding that the Little Prince is just a vision, because the pilot that, you know, break his plane, he has a crash, is dehydrated. And because of dehydration, he's very close to death, and then he starts hallucinating. And what he's hallucinating is he sees himself, he sees the child in him, and the child that has an amazing imagination. And basically, The Little Prince is about the fact that us as human beings, as adults, we lose our imagination. And I always, you know, For me, it was also, we talked about how children, when you give a present to a very young child, they'll play much longer with the wrapping paper than with the toy. And you wonder, like, oh my God, I went all the way to the shop, got you this because I really liked it. I thought you were going to have fun. And you go with the paper. So, and that's because the paper can be anything. It can be so many things. And I think that's the beauty of being a child. And I think The Little Prince is very much about of this crash and of this dehydration. He is reminded and he can make choices in life. Will he embrace his little prince and have him forever, or will he let him die and move on? And basically, that's at the end, that's what happens. The little prince dies and he is alive again and moves on. But he will always remember, by looking in the stars, that there is a little prince on a tiny planet with 3 huge trees. So that's the beauty about The Little Prince. There's so many stories, and I'm sure if I would do it again in 10 years, I'll do it from another perspective. But to me, that's how it felt the last time I made it. So I'm happy for you that you are tackling that story.
Yes, and exactly the same. I mean, the same. We cannot tackle stories the same way, but it's interesting that, like at this point of our lives, how when we. That's why I wanted to know a little bit of, or maybe tell the audience, 2 of us, about how important it is forces us somehow to think differently about certain things in our lives, and how maybe at some point of our lives we have enough room and enough space to see how we developed as a human being. So
Yeah, and
okay.
that's why, talking
Yeah.
about interviews, it's very scary to have written interviews, because when you read yourself 15 years later and you're like, oh my God, did I really say this? Did I really think that? And then you understand the context of when you said it, why you said it. And then you always think, much later in life, I should be much kinder, because what I do know now is that everything keeps changing. When you're young, you think that you're an adult and that's one thing. On the contrary, we keep evolving, and the only certainty that we have is that there's always change. And the biggest fear that we have is for change. So that's the struggle. Huge fear and a huge, anguish for dancers.
That's really bad position of dancers in the scope of all performing arts, I believe. Somehow, I was just recently thinking about how really each decade means a certain period of time for a dancer's career. Knowing more about you people, I'm just confirming this hypothesis to become like a more firm experience of how really in each 10 years it's different for a dancer. And talking about, you were talking about the mental strength, or which is for sure needed for dancers, even more for other professions in the art, because this mental strength is important for them to be creative, to stay active,
Mhm.
and to be happy with what they are doing. While for others, mental health means tackling other aspects of life.
Well,
Maybe
I
that
was
are not
I was
so
actually sorry to interrupt you. I was actually reflecting on why does the youth have such problems with mental health issues these days? Because when I look at my mom, she was a nurse. Her father said, you have to be a nurse or a nun. There was not many choices. And now, 60 years later, there's so many choices. Really poor, like being poor does not exist like it did in the 50s, where, you know, my father ate a potato in 1 week and it was divided by 8 children. So I think we are too much focused on happiness. We think that happiness is a constant state. And I think that happiness is an emotion like sadness, like curiosity. And it's sometimes you feel it and it already goes. And I think that people think that we should be happy the whole time, but being a human being is not easy. It's a learning curve and a learning process. And, you know, like learning any craft, mathematician, pirouettes, it doesn't work the first day. We will go through a lot of frustration and a lot of moments of, okay, now I can do 1 pirouette, now I can do 3, now I can do 3 every time. And we do accept it with that, but we don't accept it with life. We can't feel every day as happy. And I think that when young professionals are not happy every day, they panic. They think, oh my God, I must be going bad. No, you're going through a transitions. And the only words of wisdom that I can give you, it's not forever that you're going to feel this way. It's a moment of learning. And moment of learning, even as a choreographer, whenever a piece fails and is not good, that's when I learn the most. Damn, I wish that I would learn so much more when my piece was successful. But unfortunately, I learned so much more when my pieces are not successful. Because the next time I won't do the same mistakes, or I'm hoping I won't do the same mistakes. And I think that we are stressing too much on trying to be happy, as opposed to let's work, let's be curious, and let's be healthy. Health first, and then let's remain curious and learn every day, as opposed to let's try to be happy every day. That doesn't exist. We're ready to fail, you know, we're doomed to fail if we're aiming for happiness the whole time, I think. And, you know, with social media, young kids are looking at what their neighbors are doing and they're thinking, well, they must be happy because look, they're under the sun. Look, she's turning 10 periods. Look, so it all looks so good around you that you feel like a failure. And they should know, I mean, I like social media. I like that it informs me, but I'm also very much aware that it's a chosen reality. It's a split moment that somebody decides to put online, and you should not make a judgment of somebody's life. They have a better life than me just because it's online. It's fake. It's all constructed. It's a constructed reality. And not the truth. So I think that youth should be thinking a little bit more about what it does to them and not panic about not feeling 100% happy every day.
It's very tricky to define the scale or to measure the happiness, and I believe also we are different people, and also, you know, culturally, happiness for somebody because if it wouldn't be beautiful, then we wouldn't be talking about happiness at all. But good. I think it's the topic we can discuss, like it's really maybe a topic for, or a theme for some arts work about happiness. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
mean, you know, sometimes happiness, like you hear a lot of people saying, I am more happy giving a present than receiving a present. You have to find what makes you happy. Maybe working, maybe helping people and not being busy with you fills you with happiness, as opposed to expect that it's coming to you. So it's a research of what, you know, you have to go into activity, but you can't, except if you're a Buddhist on one leg and you find nirvana and you're happy all the time. But it's not a constant state. It is something that you go through each day or each week. But yeah, we should aim to learn what it is to be a human. I think that is, you know, that's an interesting process and an interesting journey. Let's learn what it is to be a human. And in that, there is a lot of duality. There's darkness and lightness and all of that, and observe it that certain way. But anyway, that has nothing to do with ballet.
Oh,
It's
of course
much
it
more
does. So
Buddhism.
no, everything has to do with ballet because people are involved in ballet. Us as human beings somehow, regardless if we are just in the audience creating something or practicing, or I mean this way being on stage as a dancers. So I think you are the same person in the studio. So it would be really beautiful to see you how you work. You know, in terms of sometimes the preparation for for creation is so important. I think it's sometimes even more important to have this process from the very beginning, especially when the group of artists are involved on a stage, or dancers or actors or whomever, to make this dynamic between us. And how do you feel your role in this developed? What were the struggles at the beginning when you started to be educated?
Learning every day is when I'm too prepared, it doesn't work. So, you know, I prepare a story ballet. I have to know everything about the story, the characters. Why are we deciding for this kind of costumes? Why are we deciding for this sceneries? Yes, that I should prepare, but I never prepare steps. Because I feel that when I do, like 1/8, the vibration in the studio is much lower. You can feel that people think, well, if it was me today or her, it would be exactly the same step. And they're right. So I try to improvise the steps. Then I look how the steps are on the dancers, and then I mold it and I sculpt it on the artist I have in front of me. And so I always say to dancers, when a piece is good, it's because there was this moment of full commitment from the dancers, from me, from the ballet master at the moment that we made it. We all wanted this to be good, as opposed to have a division between the dancer thinking, okay, tell me what to do. That's not enough, because I can make the piece from the outside, but you will make the piece from the inside. And so you're as much a creator, although I do all the steps. I don't work a lot with improvisation, but we are creating it together. And I was just saying that to the dancer from San Francisco Ballet. They were doing Broken Wings, which is a short ballet of Frida Kahlo that I made in 2016. And as we were running the pieces, Tamara Rojo was there. And I was just thanking the dancers. I said, you know, I made this piece with Tamara Rojo and with Irek Mukhamedov. Together, we developed those characters. And so I am teaching you this, but actually parts of it, like a mosaic, are ideas from the performers. They made it from flesh and blood those characters and not just dancers doing steps, but they made it three-dimensional. And so I like to be very prepared on my papers, but not prepared at all on that day. So I come very late into the studio with my coffee. I say, okay, what's going to happen today? And I'm always very excited to let's see what happens. The only thing that I have to really take into account is time. So for Coco Chanel, I had actually had the whole script, and I knew that I needed to make 10 scenes in the first 2 weeks and 10 scenes. That's very organized. Otherwise, I'm in trouble in week 5. I can't do a run through. So that's the only thing that it's the discipline that I have to myself as a choreographer. And the rest, we'll see what happens, and we play around. And you know what? When you are like that and you're open, I feel that dancers feel like they're part of the creation, and that always elevates the work. So
interesting. But there's still a moment in your work when you have to be organized, so not everything is left to be a coincidence. But even in organizing things, sometimes there's a coincidence because you have different ways of organizing things.
yeah, for example, you know, I have a duet between Coco Chanel and Boy Capel, and there is a table on wheels. I know there's going to be a table. What can we do with the table? It's not just a duet. She's drawing and making a design for a new, and that's why the table is there. We use. So that's the framework that I give myself.
Meet people who are usually well organized, want to know a lot in advance. They are not sure to enter the space without being well prepared. And then they meet you being so open to what happens. How do you manage then the relationship then?
That's with dancers. Sometimes dancers want to know the counts. And it's usually in classical ballet, because they're used to learn old ballets that are set by stagers, and the stagers have the paper, all the counts, and it's already a finished product. And with me, I just tell them, this is the music. And then they say, on which count is this? I'm like, I don't know. Let's see. And some dancers are uncomfortable with that, because they learn better the choreography if they have counts. And some dancers realize, oh, if it feels comfortable for me to go slower here and faster here, it's gonna happen in the choreography. So it really depends of the dances I have in front of me, and I feel it mostly with you know, ballet dance who need much more the framework. But some of them are really, it's very refreshing for them that there are no counts. And I always tell them, when we go on stage in 5 weeks, there are going to be counts, but let's see what happens and how we are inspired by this music. Because, you know, when you set movements the first day, it always feels very fast. And then 2 weeks later, it's not hard at all. So I always say, let's be patient, and the speed will come up at some point.
So for them, it's another kind of learning, another kind of process also to experience on their bodies, because we know the heart, one of the strongest things is some memory or some way of functioning is deep in our bodies. It's not just for dancers, it's for, I think, for any other human being. It's like that. So it's a very important point to address. I would like to ask you about when you go to work for some company, is it important for you to find a special theme or a special narrative or the special way you
it's a centennial birthday of Maria Callas. Would you mind making a piece about her? And I was like, great, she's on my bucket list. Thank you very much. With Coco Chanel, it was with Septime Weber. We sort of found it together because I ever wanted to make a piece. So sometimes it's the programming, and sometimes it's like you can do whatever you want. So it's easier, of course, if you know the company before, to have a sense of what would look good on them. But usually the theme is very clear. I have my music, and then I come in and I'm like, oh, okay. And it's very interesting. I always say that to choreographers. The first day that you record movements and you're happy at the end of the day, you keep those videos on your phone, and then 6 weeks later, when you look at the first day, you're like, oh, this was so bad, but it didn't feel that way. And so you see how the work has developed and how your relationship with the dancers, to the dancers, has developed. Because a funny thing, I always say to choreographers, keep those first videos, you're gonna laugh. And you know, you shouldn't panic. It is normal that the beginnings are always very they don't feel interesting, but they are a small seed for afterwards a huge cake.
So do you ever think about the first moments in the process, like the first ideas that you have, that there's the need to go back to them? Just the opposite way of thinking, maybe. Now you said, like, you look at the start of your work sometimes, and the observation of what you've done and the situation that it existed at that time makes you laugh, or it's funny, or you have certain feeling about that, what was then, but for sure not that confident as you have at the end of the process. But sometimes I notice it can happen that while investigating or on your travel through the process, you are looking for
I always feel that language is sometimes an obstacle, and I don't always find the nuances. And a few weeks into the process, I do feel that the dancers know what I'm talking about. It's the same words, but because they know me, they understand. And so, yeah, finding ideas by the end of the process are easier than in the beginning of the process, because in the process, we're really learning each other's language, rhythm, you know, idiosyncrasies that, you know, I remember there was a moment that I drank a lot of Red Bull. So I would arrive with my Red Bull, and then by the second Red Bull, I would hear afterwards from dancers, they knew that we would do a run through because I had the second Red Bull. So, you know each other's habits, and I get to know in a group the dynamic of the group, who is the funny guy, who is really shy, who's actually the one that always know the counts, and we always, and you can start making jokes with everyone because you know that group. And so, yes, sometimes ideas that you had on the first day that didn't really gel, the third week, the scene will come out very quickly because we know each other. And we find, the first week you're trying to find the language of the piece or the language of the characters. And sometimes you go into a direction where like, no, this character really has to stay in that vocabulary. So that's how that first week is always a bit unsettling, but very exciting.
We have more in common than you think. You mentioned Irek Muhamedov. He was an artistic leader of our ballet company here in Ljubljana, And also Yashutrin was our artistic director, and we are in close connection with Edward Kluk. So I will use the opportunity, maybe it's a surprise for you, to ask a little bit, not that much about the past, but what's your plan for the future? Because I know in a way it's connected with at least two people that we were talking
Yes.
about. Can you
Yes.
tell
So,
us more, but not
Yash.
more than you are able to?
Oh, okay. No, we can say now because it's official. So Yash Otrin was appointed the intendant of dance in Dortmund, and he wanted in his team Edward Kluk, and he wanted me on the team. And I don't know Yash Otrin. I know Edward Kluk's work, and I'm a huge fan of his work. I told Yash that when I look at Edward's work, I understand his choices. So I said, we have a lot of similarities. He was like, no. I said, no, it's not the same step. It's just the choices he makes. I get it. So it was nice to meet him 2 weeks ago. And it seems that Yash Otrin has stalked me. He said that he started looking for me and for my work 12 years ago, which is exactly the moment when I started doing full-length ballets. So I don't know what he's seen of me or what he knows about me, but he thought that if he wanted to be the director there, we would be a beautiful combination, Edward and me. And yes, I feel very proud that he made me join his group, his team.
That's great. So you have a lot in common now with Slovenia. Maybe now when you said 20 years ago, I should ask Yash if this was the moment when he was artistic director here, for sure, we would met before. Yeah, but we meet now, and I would leave it like a beautiful conversation that made my day. And I'm sure it's different than having a written interview, being involved in such a vivid conversation. But before we say goodbye, I would like to ask, maybe Natasha has a question. If she doesn't, I'm not sure.
Well, you stole the question.
I'm sorry.
I was I was just thinking about that about Yashutrin. What a coincidence happened, you know, when we agreed on the interview. Afterwards, I found out. Yeah. Afterwards, I found out that you're going to work with Yashutrin and that we are all connected somehow. But maybe I will ask a question around that because you will work with company dancers, so there will be some continuity.
Yes.
So that this will be something new and challenging for you, I presume.
Yes, because usually my and then once I get to know the institution and the industry, like you say, and all the political turmoil inside a company, there's always something going on. That's the moment that I leave. And that's great because I can just really concentrate on bringing and creating a project. And then I go just at the moment where I start to know what's going on. So that's going to be different with Dortmund because now I will know the inner politics of the house and the company, and I will come back. And I'm hoping, I really hope, what I like about being a freelancer is that I use different dances every time. And I hope that once I go to Dortmund, that I don't use the same principal dancer for the next piece, for the next piece, for the next piece. I hope that my work and my view on them stays very open and diverse, and that I try to pick out some, gold and sparkle here and there, and that I don't get used to have my little team of those dancers are always doing the main characters and those dancers are always doing that. So that's going to be a challenge for me. That's my hope. And that's what I love about being a freelance dancer, is that I never use dancers twice.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. So thank you very much, Annabelle.
Thank you,
Thank you to Tatiana also.
Thank you, both of you.
And we say goodbye.
Okay, goodbye, Natasha. Goodbye, Tatiana.
Best of luck in Dortmund, and see you soon, I hope.
See you soon, I hope. Yes. Bye.
Bye.